So a few days ago, Fight Hub TV did this interview with Jared Anderson, and it was quite eye-opening. It was very insightful. Hatman did a video on it, which you've probably seen, most of you. And of course, if you haven't seen this interview, I'd encourage you to check it out because Jared Anderson, he gives quite a candid insight into his feelings towards boxing right now. And it's kind of not exactly what you expect to hear from a young, up and coming professional fighter, because he actually describes how he just sees boxing as a job, and a job that he's actually quite burnt out by. He feels like there's more to life, there's more that he wants to explore, and should he have his way, he'll be retired by the age of 26. And now you're kind of thinking, okay, that's a few years away, but then you see that Jared Anderson is already 23. So if he really sticks by that, he's only going to be around for another 2, 3 years. And he's only been a professional for about 3.5 years already. So, yeah, some potentially concerning things because Jared Anderson only now is starting to get into some more close matchups where he potentially isn't going to have it all his own way. So, yeah, a bit of a some strange things to hear from Jared Anderson in this interview. However, I want to kind of use this as an opportunity to kind of explore something that I've thought about for a while. Just to reference Hatman's video, he actually talks about the potential rationale behind these sentiments of Jared Anderson. He talks about how there is the potential that he's just telling the truth and he is burnt out. He's been boxing for the best part of 15 years, since he was 8 years old, I believe. Hasn't been pro a particularly long time, only about 3.5 years. However, I do feel like people, they don't always factor in how tough being an amateur fighter can be, especially when you're an amateur of a certain level. You know, if you're representing your region or your country and you're going to these pretty high profile tournaments, it's not unusual to have 2, 3, 4 fights in a couple of days against other very capable fighters who can still do you some serious damage and harm. So yeah, just because professional boxing is pretty hardcore, it doesn't necessarily mean that amateur boxing is kid mode or is kid gloves. No, it's not like that. Amateur boxing can still be bloody hard. It's still boxing at the end of the day, it's still fighting. So there is that potential. Hatman also suggests that maybe Jared Anderson is just saying these things to maybe sound a bit edgy and make some headlines and get some eyes on his next fight because people might be intrigued to see how he performs, given that he's stated that he doesn't really have all that much desire to stay in boxing for much longer. And I just want to kind of take this opportunity. Well, firstly, Jared Anderson also talks about how there's more to life. He's kind of had this realization that there is more to life than boxing. He wants to go out, he wants to do things, he wants to... I think in a roundabout way, he says that he isn't necessarily defined by boxing. So he wants to go out, he wants to do things, he wants to enjoy certain small things in life that maybe if he stays pro for too long, he might not be able to enjoy, such as looking after his kids rather than handing them over to their mum or to a babysitter or relative while he has to go and train. And these are all very significant things, and these are things that fighters who do stay professional for a long time, they're always the kind of hardships that they talk about. You know, having to leave kids behind, having to leave family behind, and miss out on family gatherings and different life events because they have to train, because they have to get prepared or defend a title and all that stuff. And of course, this is it's understandable. You know, I think he also mentioned how boxing, I may have said this, but boxing to him feels like a bit of a job, and the business side of it can be a burden, which is once again understandable. You know, us as fans who are just watching from a distance, we're the consumers. Even we get frustrated at the business of boxing. Imagine when you're a fighter and this is your medium of self-expression, the thing that gets you up in the morning and is the kind of the center point of your life, where you get to express yourself, your competitive side, something you can really invest time and energy into, your craft. That all that stuff makes sense, And I 100% understand if Jared Anderson feels that way. But I want to kind of take this opportunity to explore something I've thought about for a while, and that is how this next societal generation, specifically the Zoomers, as they're usually known as, the Gen Z lot, I believe that's, the late 90s to the 2010s, those are the Gen Zs, the Zoomers. How are they going to fare in professional boxing? I mean, how are they going to fare in life overall? And I don't want to sound like a boomer, the old meme, okay, boomer, always complaining about the next generation, the younger generation. However, that is my generation, so I feel like it gives me a good position to critique. I don't know Jared Anderson personally, but I know he's of that generation. He does strike me as someone who's a bit more intelligent than the average Zoomer, just based on his interviews. He's already, physically, he's very mature. Looks like a grown man at 23. There are a lot of 23-year-olds who haven't seemed to have aged since they were 17. But even from a mentality perspective, he does seem to be kind of wise beyond his years. But I'd say that he's probably the exception and not the rule, because what I've noticed in my amongst my generation, the Gen Z, and I say that in this way because from what I can tell from my YouTube analytics, a lot of the guys who watch my videos are older than me. They're of the 30-year-olds and the 40-year-olds, which I appreciate for tuning in, because I'm just some cocky young guy making these videos. But nevertheless, what I see around me and the young people of today are people who, they have so many shortcuts around them, so many ways to become successful, so many ways to become famous without really even doing much, that it just makes me question, how are these lot going to fare? How are sports like boxing going to survive in certain environments, particularly in the West, where young people these days really don't have to do anything? They can become stars overnight through social media, doing silly TikTok dances and following the latest meme trends. How are they going to apply themselves to a spit and sawdust, blood and guts sport like boxing, even as an amateur? And I say that there are plenty of guys my age and younger who are so transfixed on boxing. They love it to death. That is their thing. Boxing defines them. And now some people may see that as a weakness. I define what I am. I don't need something external to do that. And I understand that, but think of it in a way where you have someone who is so devoted to, say, boxing, your opponent, who this is their life. They love it. The good times, the bad times, the rough, the smooth, they love it. They're in it to win it. And they just want that whole experience. They want the pain, but they want the glory. And what if you're one of these Gen Zers who isn't really about that life, isn't really into the graft, but you like the status, you like being able to say that you do boxing. Oh, I'm a boxer. And it sounds exciting. It sounds almost mystical to your friendship groups or to the girls you talk to. But deep down, you're not really in it like this other guy is, who is mad as it sounds. He doesn't mind getting hit in the face. He doesn't mind tasting his own blood, because he wants to get you, he wants to take your head off so he can win, so he can experience that thrill of overcoming that hardship in the ring and getting the W. Because that's what I've noticed. And this is going to be less of a boxing talk and more of a societal talk. Because what I've seen in my generation is a generation that loves the idea of success, but doesn't love the idea of graft, doesn't love the idea of attaching yourself to a process and just really going through it, really trying to dig deep, maybe fall short, but then rebuild. This is a generation of instant gratification where I want it now. And if I don't want it now, it's probably not worth it. When really it's the other way around. When you have to struggle for something, when you have to work yourself to the bone for something, those are usually the things that are worth pursuing in life. but we have this generation that is just hooked on instant gratification through social media, through, well, all media really. And you could probably look around, especially you older guys, because I feel like older generations, they tend to see it. It's usually easier to find and identify the flaws in other generations or other groups rather than our own. I think that's just human nature really. But you looking at the younger generation, those born from the late 90s through to the 2010s, there's almost like there's something missing. It's a generation that really has the world at their fingertips, but at least from what I've seen, almost some of the most lazy people you will come across. Young people are supposed to be full of energy and full of get up and go, ready to go out and explore the world, but they want to live on social media. They want to flex, they want to floss, and they want that, once again, they want to exude and show the world that they're successful when really they're just posing. And it's no secret that if you're a poser in boxing, sooner or later you're going to get exposed. So, hey, this is kind of, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, because initially this was talking about Jared Anderson, who himself is a very talented fighter, shown already that, he's got a fighting heart, but him talking about how he doesn't necessarily want to be in boxing for that much longer, it makes me think, like, is this just how young people are these days? I don't know what it is. I think it's an interesting question, a bit more of a sociology question, if you will, but how it pertains to sport and boxing. How are the next generation, the younger generation, how are they going to fare in boxing? And don't get me wrong, like, you go to boxing clubs all over the place now, there are going to be 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, young kids who are attracted to boxing. But, to sound like a bit of a boomer again, you take away those ones, the real hardcore ones, and the average person in boxing, the average young person in boxing, how are they going to differ from the fighters of yesteryear, when they already have so much available to them? We heard about the famous quote from Marvin Hagler: "It's difficult to get up and do your running in the morning when you're in silk pajamas." There are a hell of a lot of kids these days who have access to more than just silk pajamas. But then maybe that's the nature of boxing. It attracts the kids who don't have as much, from those backgrounds, are a bit more hard up in life. But hey, I'm just spitballing at this point. It's just something that's been on my mind for a while, and I saw this as a bit of an opportunity to give my 2 cents and whatnot. So yeah, over to you guys. What do you think of the next generation in boxing? It's an open question. It's an open forum. As I say, I'm a Gen Zer, so talking about these Zoomers, I'm talking about people who are my age. And I must say that, I don't know, from what I've seen, it doesn't look great. But maybe you guys have a different view. Leave it down below, and I'll get back to you. Be interesting to hear what you guys think. For now, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.